I would say that Xabi Alonso, his father was a manager, so he grew up similar to me. He was born with the father player, he grew up with the father manager, then he became a player, of course much better than I was. His position on the pitch and his knowledge of the game very high. He played in Spain, in England and in Germany, and he was coached by Guardiola in Bayern, by myself in Real Madrid, by Ancelotti in Real Madrid, by Benitez in Liverpool. So I think if you put all this together, I think Xabi has conditions to be a very good coach.
We start with big news coming out of Chelsea this evening. Just hours after suffering defeats at the hands of Manchester City in the FA Cup final, well, Chelsea have moved a step closer to appointing Xabi Alonso as their new manager, with a deal now agreed. Our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokor, has joined us here in the studio. Quite simply, Kaveh, why Xabi Alonso?
Well, he's the number one target that Chelsea have decided is the right man to take over full time. Now, interesting backstory to this, because we were actually told a week ago that Chelsea had agreed a deal for Xabi Alonso to become their new manager. We obviously put some calls into the club and we were told, hey, hold on a second, it's not that advanced. There's still a process going on. There's still other targets we're looking at. So either Chelsea were being a little bit economical with the truth and they didn't want the news coming out before the FA Cup final today, or actually it wasn't as advanced as we'd been led to believe last week and they were still trying to tie up a deal. Now we know. The FA Cup is out of the way. Xabi Alonso is going to be the next Chelsea manager. If you look at all the CVs of the candidates, you could make a pretty good argument that he has the best CV. If I was a Chelsea fan, the only thing I'd be a little bit worried about is the fact that he doesn't have experience of managing in the Premier League. But of course, if you look at his CV, winning the double at Bayer Leverkusen, invincible season, and also everything that he achieved as a player, I think that is why Chelsea have decided to go for him rather than some of the other candidates, because there are a lot of good managers available this summer.
And that former Leverkusen obviously attracted Real Madrid, where he didn't last, obviously. But in any case, you know, that big name reputation must count for something. But when it comes to Chelsea, you know, not that many managers have ultimate sort of control. Will he have it?
Well, he's not going to have total control. You know, if you are the manager of Chelsea or the head coach, let's wait and see what he's going to be called. You have to fit into the structure that they have in place. But I think he will have a little bit more of a say than, for instance, somebody like Liam Rosenior or maybe even Enzo Maresca. Don't forget, Enzo Maresca was doing a pretty good job in his first full season. Chelsea won 2 titles. They won the Club World Cup. But then I think the relationship began to deteriorate behind the scenes. There was contact from Manchester City about potentially taking over from Pep Guardiola when and if he decides to leave City. So it derailed their relationship. But I think Enzo Maresca was unhappy behind the scenes. He wanted more control, the kind of control that traditionally managers have had. But you're not going to get that. So you make a very good point in your question. Is there going to be some tension going forward? Is Xabi Alonso the kind of character who grew up playing under traditional managers, who wants the kind of control that traditional managers have? And will there potentially be some trouble further on down the road? You know, I don't want to sort of predict that there are going to be problems in the future. I'm sure that setting out on this journey together, they will have worked out exactly what the parameters are going to be and who's going to be in charge of what. But I think he will definitely have a little bit more of a say, for instance, when it comes to transfers. But by and large, I think he will be the person who will be in charge.
OK, well, let's just talk a little bit about that in terms of transfers. You know, we know that Chelsea have had a certain strategy in terms of how they've signed players thus far, especially given the age of the squad. Do you think that will change, given that now we have Xabi Alonso earmarked as the next man in charge?
I think it was going to change anyway. I think Chelsea have realised that they need a little bit of a tweak to their strategy when it comes to how they do business in transfer markets. I think they recognise they needed a bit more experience. They want to sign 2 or 3 ready-made players this window. They recognise they need a little bit more experience in their squad. I think they've had that with Levi Colwill coming back in. They need more players with leadership qualities, more personality, character, who can sort things out when things are going wrong on the pitch. Also who can lead when it comes to game management. So I think that is the kind of player they'll be looking for this summer. And certainly Xabi Alonso will have a say in who they sign. He'll have a very, very big say. But they're not just going to say, Xabi, you're in charge now. You're in charge of buying and selling players. You can do what you want. No, he has to fit into the structure that is already there at the club.
What do you think his main priorities are going to be, Xabi?
I mean, look, he needs to sort Chelsea out because, make no mistake, Chelsea have had a terrible season by Chelsea standards. There's a very good chance they're going to finish in the bottom half of the table. This season was all about trying to improve on what they achieved last season, going a step further, definitely getting back into the Champions League, also perhaps potentially challenging for the title. So they've taken a big step backwards. So he needs to sort that out. I think, funny enough, not being in Europe potentially, not winning the FA Cup today means that route to the Europa League is closed. We know they're not going to be in the Champions League, probably not the Europa League, maybe Conference League if they finish 8th. Maybe he can do without the headache of Europe at all. Similar to what Michael Carrick is doing at Manchester United, so he can just focus on the domestic form. I think Chelsea have some very, very good world-class players. They proved that, but consistently over a league campaign, they haven't been able to get it right. And a lot of people will say that is because the players, the squad is lacking experience, lacking leadership. That is something that they'll get with Xabi Alonso, and hopefully something that they will address during this summer's transfer window. For what it's worth, I still think it's a little bit of a risk going for Xabi Alonso. You know, it's easy to stand here and say, what a great appointment, incredible CV, incredible player, what a coup for Chelsea. But let's not forget, every managerial appointment has an element of risk to it. And I think the element of risk with Xabi Alonso is, 1, his lack of Premier League experience, and 2, the fact that he's also very, very closely associated with Liverpool. Although he did play for Real Madrid and Bayern Munich as well.
I'll come to Liverpool in a sec. I mean, I think it's a really good point that you mentioned about the sort of impact of lack of European football and what Carrick is doing as Manchester United. You know, maybe he's had a helping hand with not having any distractions in European competition. It's actually happened with Chelsea before. I remember they finished, I think, 10th one season. Next season, in comes Antonio Conte, and they win the Premier League title. So they have previous experience of this. Maybe 8th place and Conference League is a distraction they don't particularly want. We'll see. On Liverpool then, because obviously, as you mentioned, you know, one of the most loved players of that era at Liverpool early this century. So how much were they in the picture? Did they have a stronger hand to play maybe previously than they do right now?
Well, I don't think they've been in the picture at all. They've decided they're going to stick with Arne Slot. He said it himself at his news conference on Thursday. He has every reason to believe that he's still going to be the Liverpool manager next season. I think, look, if you have read or listened to what Xabi Alonso had said in the past, I think one day in the future he would like to be the Liverpool manager. If he was panning out his sort of ideal career path, it would involve managing Liverpool one day. But the Liverpool job is not available at the moment, and Liverpool have not made a move for him. They've known for a while that he's available. Potentially, if they had decided that they wanted to change direction, they could have contacted him, made an official approach, but that has not happened. I know a lot of Liverpool fans would love him back, but he can't pick up the phone and beg Liverpool to come in for him. He can only accept the jobs that are offered to him, and he knows that Chelsea really, really want him, and that's why he's agreed to become the new Chelsea manager.
How do you think Chelsea fans are looking at this Saturday evening? Do you think they're excited? Do you think that they're a little bit on the fence? What do you think is the general vibe?
I think overall they'll be very, very happy because I think sometimes they would have felt that perhaps, you know, we're being sort of given the prospect of getting Xabi Alonso and it's never going to happen. We're going to have to settle for, you know, the 3rd, 4th choice. They're obviously very unhappy, a lot of Chelsea fans, with the way the club's being run. with the ownership structure at the club. So I think if this works out, it will be great news for the Chelsea owners as well, because it will quieten down, the sort of feelings amongst the fan base about what's been going wrong at the club. Having said that, the issues that the fan base have are not going to go away. Just because you get a new manager in and you maybe win a few games or win a few trophies, it's not certain that those concerns are going to go away, because I think those concerns are deep-rooted. Interesting as well, the timing. We're standing here on a very, very busy day when, Celtic have won the Scottish title, Manchester City have won the FA Cup. There's a lot
as well, that news.
Michael Carrick, there's a lot going on. Yeah, our top story is a good news story about Chelsea. So I think...
Is it a slight raised eyebrow?
Well, I think from a PR and a communications point of view, instead of me and you standing here talking about what's gone wrong at Chelsea, they lost the FA Cup final. What about the referee? What about VAR? They're in the bottom half of the table. They've only won one league game in 2.5 months. The Chelsea fans are protesting against the owners. Instead of talking about all that, although we have touched on it, because you're an ultimate professional and you asked the right question, we are standing here in front of a big, graphic that's Xabi Alonso 4-year deal agreed. So from a PR and comms perspective, I think it's a good move for Chelsea. But look, I always say, on paper, everything looks great. Liverpool signing Isak looked great. Liverpool signing Wirtz looked great. There've been lots of things that look great on paper, but let's just wait and see how this pans out. But well done to Chelsea.
Yeah.
Most Chelsea fans would say, this is the guy we wanted, and the owners have gone out and delivered.
Yeah. All right, Kave. Thank you very much indeed for the moment. Kave Solikoa, our chief correspondent there.